Okay, this video is kinda of a necessity for me to make. Rahu in the fifth house is one of the most craziest placements to have in a birth chart. I mean, any of Rahu's placements are crazy to have, but this one in particularly interests me the most. There are so many different possible outcomes with having a Rahu or a North Node in the fifth house. So for this placement, I'll make a series of videos, then I'll upload my full interpretation of Rahu in the fifth house. The same way you see Sean and Sharp and them be doing with their podcasters. I'll begin. Remember too, most of my interpretations of Rahu will sound different than anybody else's. I learned a lot about how to interpret Rahu from a guy by the name of Ashok Saxena, but even then, I still had to learn most of Rahu's placements on my own. Shout out to KRS Astrology as well, because I always remembered his interpretation of Rahu in the fifth house, at least regarding pregnancy. So his video is inspiring this one. Rahu represents things that are weird, unconventional, unusual, but in a bad way. So bad that we try to get away from it. It represents things we aren't accustomed to seeing, so foreign and exotic stuff, you could say, are represented by Rahu. Rahu also shows us the rebellious side of things. Now, if this interpretation of Rahu sounds different than others, it's because I had to study things on my own accord. So, fifth house represents children, sexual partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, entrepreneurship, speculative businesses, sports, going out to parties, or places where we can have fun. I have to add, these interpretations can still affect you if you have Rahu conjunct your fifth lord. I'll start with children. Rahu in the fifth house will actually make a person have children through unusual ways. This is or was the thing that always stuck out to me in the KRS video. Rahu here can make someone have children through ways that aren't common. Ways such as adoption, child surrogacy. If you remember how Kim Kardashian had children, I remembered watching the show and she had to go through all of these weird methods. Then she spent lots of money for doctors. All of this just to get pregnant. When most people don't have to go through all of this, they just simply have sex. Kim's process was uncommon because in her moon chart, Rahu is in her fifth house. So that's why observing how Kim Kardashian had children is important if you yourself have Rahu in the fifth house. When it comes to adoption, you can use Cat Williams as an example. He adopted many children. And I remember looking at his chart. I think it was his sidereal chart. I was even tempted to make a video about it. But he had his fifth lord conjunct Rahu. And you see how many children he adopted. It's like this with people that have Rahu placed in the fifth house as well. The adoption that Rahu causes, I've noticed, isn't due to a person being incapable of producing a child. For whatever reason, they just have the desire to do so. Let's just say you aren't capable of producing your own child due to health issues, and you have Rahu in the fifth house, then for sure you'll still have a child in this lifetime, but it would be through one of these mechanisms. I would certainly think that you would have a child in this lifetime. Let me talk about more of the uncommon ways this Rahu placement can make someone have a child. Obviously, I just mentioned adoption, and we know adoption can occur through many different ways and reasons that I wouldn't know of. For example, someone can adopt an orphan or a family member's child. People like Steve Harvey adopt their spouse's children. You or I won't know the scenario until it happens. Another way is through donorship. So, yeah, you might end up becoming a sperm donor. If you're a female, you may end up needing a sperm donor yourself. Obviously, a female can't become one, so the male that has Rahu in the fifth house, they are the ones that are likely to become a sperm donor. Whereas a female that has Rahu in the fifth house, she may end up needing a sperm donor. Be careful if you have this placement though, because I watched a Netflix documentary called Our Father. Boy, was that crazy. Another unusual way is through having a stepchild. All of this adoption or having a child that isn't yours is due to the foreign element that Rahu brings. Foreign as in of a different ethnicity. So your children would be of a different ethnicity than you are. They could even have a different race as well. So you could be a black person and end up with a white or a biracial child. Use Patrick Mahomes as an example. I guess you could use Patrick Mahomes Sr. as an example. I don't know if he has this placement, but it's just a random example. Even using incubators can be a possibility. I don't know if this placement makes someone freeze their eggs as a way of becoming pregnant, but it wouldn't surprise me. Just any scenario where you aren't having a child just by having regular sex. Keep in mind, this Rahu doesn't necessarily indicate having health issues, and that being the reason you have to resort into having children through unconventional ways.